My brother Ethan tried to drug me to force me into fathering a child for his twisted legacy. I woke up in a Seattle hospital, my body burning, fighting for my life, while he smirked and planned to auction my future to a wealthy couple. This is the story of how my own family tried to destroy me and how I fought back. From the time I was 10, Ethan, my older brother, was obsessed with the Carter family legacy. Growing up in our sleek Seattle mansion, he'd force me into these bizarre fatherhood training sessions. Picture a scrawny kid lugging around a creepy robot baby that screamed if you didn't feed it right, while Ethan lectured me on passing on our genes. If I complained, he'd crank up the robot's wails and say, "Real men don't whine, James." Our parents, dazzled by Ethan's 3 sons, called him the family's pride, while I was just the wasted potential who dared to dream of a life without kids. By 16, Ethan was parading his boys at every family gala, boasting about their superior Carter bloodline. I'd hide in the corner, sketching code for apps I'd later build, knowing I wanted freedom, not diapers. But Ethan's obsession grew darker. He'd corner me at dinners, hissing, "You're betraying us by hoarding your DNA." His eyes gleamed with a manic intensity that chilled me. Then came the night that changed everything. Ethan invited me to a family milestone party at our waterfront estate. I thought it was to celebrate his latest kid. Instead, as champagne flowed, I felt a sharp prick in my arm. Ethan loomed over me, syringe in hand, whispering, "You'll thank me when your son carries our name." My vision blurred, my organs screamed, and I collapsed, hearing him say, "We're harvesting your legacy tonight." That's when I knew this wasn't just family pressure. This was a crime. That night at the waterfront estate, as my body burned from Ethan's syringe, I realized my brother wasn't just obsessed. He was dangerous. But to understand how we got here, you need to know the world I grew up in, a world where the Carter family name was treated like a sacred relic, and I was the heretic who dared to defy it. Welcome to Seattle, where our gleaming mansion overlooked Puget Sound, a monument to wealth and expectation. It was here in this polished prison that Ethan's grip on our family tightened while I fought to carve out my own path. I'm James Carter, a software engineer who'd rather code than cradle a baby. Ever since I was a kid, I knew I didn't want the life Ethan worshipped, one measured by how many sons carried our last name. Ethan, 5 years older, was the golden child. By 30, he had 3 boys, each paraded at our family's lavish galas like trophies of his devotion to the Carter legacy. Guests would fawn over them, cooing about their strong jawlines and future potential, while Ethan beamed, basking in the glow of being the family's savior. My parents, especially Dad, would clap him on the back, saying, "You're keeping our bloodline alive, son." Me? I was the disappointment, the one who'd rather debug code than diaper a kid. Our mansion was a stage for Ethan's obsession. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and walls lined with portraits of stern-faced Carter men, all glaring down as if judging my every move. Family dinners were less about food and more about Ethan's sermons on duty. He'd lean across the table, fork in hand, and lecture me. "James, a man without heirs is a dead end. You're wasting the Carter genes." His voice dripped with disdain, and Mom would nod, her eyes pleading for me to comply. I'd bite my tongue, dreaming of the day I could escape to my tech startup dreams. But Ethan's control went beyond words. He had our younger brother Liam wrapped around his finger. Liam, barely 20, idolized Ethan, mimicking his every move. Together, they'd gang up on me, mocking my childless life. "What's the point of all your apps if there's no one to inherit them?" Liam would sneer, echoing Ethan's mantra. Meanwhile, I was sneaking off to hackathons, building apps that landed me a job at a Seattle tech firm. I met Sarah there, a brilliant coder who shared my vision of a life free from family pressures. We'd stay up late, laughing over pizza and dreaming of launching our own company. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. Yet Ethan's shadow loomed. He'd show up uninvited at my apartment, eyeing my minimalist furniture like it was a personal insult. "This place screams bachelor," he'd say, smirking. "No room for a family, huh?" I'd shrug it off, but his words gnawed at me. Then I noticed strange things. My phone buzzing with unknown numbers, emails from colleagues asking if I was okay. After Ethan checked in on me, he was watching me, waiting for a crack to exploit. Sarah noticed it too. "Your brother's creepy," she said one night, half joking. I laughed, but deep down I knew she was right. The worst part, our parents enabled him. Dad, a retired banker, saw Ethan as his legacy's keeper, while Mom, desperate to keep the peace, would whisper, "Just humor him, James." They'd throw these extravagant parties, inviting Seattle's elite to celebrate Ethan's growing brood. I'd stand in the corner, nursing a drink, while guests whispered about poor James, the one who won't settle down. Ethan would swoop in, all charm, saying, "Don't worry, I'll get him on board." His smile was a blade, and I felt it sharpen with every passing year. That night at the gala, when the needle pierced my skin, I saw the truth. Ethan wasn't just pushing me to have kids. He was building an empire of control, and I was the final piece. As my vision faded, his voice echoed, "You'll thank me, James. This is for the family." But this wasn't about family. It was about power. As Ethan's poison coursed through my veins that night, I saw my life unraveling. His obsession with the Carter legacy wasn't just talk. It was a cage he'd been building around me for years. In our glittering Seattle mansion, I was the outcast, the one who dared to want more than a nursery full of heirs. But while I was chasing freedom, Ethan was tightening his grip, watching my every move, ready to pounce the moment I slipped. This wasn't just a family feud, it was a war for my soul. I'm James Carter, a 28-year-old software engineer who'd rather write code than lullabies. My days were spent at a buzzing tech firm in downtown Seattle, building apps that could change lives. My nights, they belonged to Sarah, my girlfriend, who got me like no one else. We'd hole up in my Capitol Hill apartment, plotting our startup dreams over takeout, laughing at the idea of trading our freedom for diapers. Sarah was my safe haven, the one person who saw me as more than a walking DNA bank. But Ethan saw her as a threat. To him, my life, my choices, my love was a betrayal of the Carter name. Ethan's campaign to control me was relentless. At family dinners, he'd lean in close, his voice low and venomous. "You're letting our bloodline die, James. A real man builds a dynasty." His words were knives, and he wielded them in front of everyone. Mom, Dad, even Liam, our younger brother, who'd drink in Ethan's every word like gospel. Liam, barely out of college, was Ethan's mini-me, parroting his rants about family duty. They'd gang up on me, mocking my empty apartment, my pointless career. "What's all this tech crap for if you've got no one to pass it to?" Liam would say, smirking. I'd grit my teeth, counting the seconds until I could escape back to my world. But Ethan didn't stop at words. He started meddling in my life in ways that made my skin crawl. I'd find strange charges on my credit card, subscriptions to parenting magazines I never ordered, my inbox filled with spam from fertility clinics, their subject line screaming, "Start your family today." At first I thought it was a prank, but then I caught Liam snooping around my apartment during a visit. He wasn't just visiting. He was reporting back to Ethan, feeding him details about my life. Once I overheard Ethan on the phone at a family barbecue. his voice cold. "James is dating some girl who hates kids. We need to fix that." Fix that? The word sent a chill down my spine. The worst was when Ethan started targeting Sarah. He'd show up at my office, all fake charm, asking colleagues about her. "Is she good for James? You know, he's got family obligations." My coworkers thought he was joking, but I saw the glint in his eye. Then Sarah started getting weird messages, anonymous texts saying I was hiding my true desires to have kids. She laughed it off, but I could see the unease in her eyes. "Your brother's intense," she said one night, her voice tight. I tried to reassure her, but deep down I was scared. Ethan wasn't just intense, he was unhinged. I tried to fight back in my own way. I poured myself into work, landing a big project that could fund our startup dreams. I moved to a new apartment with better security, hoping to keep Ethan at bay. But he was always one step ahead. He'd send Liam to check on me, or worse, he'd call Mom, who'd guilt-trip me with tears. "James, just talk to Ethan. He only wants what's best for the family." Best for the family? No. This was about Ethan's ego, his need to control every branch of the Carter tree. By the time that gala rolled around, I was on edge, sensing Ethan's plan, but not its scale. I thought I could handle him, outsmart him, keep him at arm's length. But as I collapsed on that marble floor, his syringe emptying into my arm, I realized I'd underestimated him. Ethan wasn't just trying to shame me into fatherhood. He was ready to steal it from me piece by piece until I had nothing left. As Ethan's voice faded into the haze of that gala night, my body screamed in agony, the syringe's poison searing through me. I'd spent years dodging his lectures, his glares, his twisted vision of the Carter legacy, but nothing prepared me for this. The family milestone party at our Seattle estate wasn't a celebration, it was a trap, and I'd walked right into it. Ethan, my own brother, had crossed a line from obsession to crime, and I was his target. The evening started innocently enough. Our waterfront mansion glittered under chandeliers packed with Seattle's elite sipping champagne and fawning over Ethan's 3 boys. I stood by the bar nursing a soda, trying to blend into the shadows. Ethan had insisted I come, calling it a big night for the Carters. I figured it was another chance for him to parade his kids and jab at my childless life. Sarah had warned me to skip it, her voice sharp over the phone. "James, something's off with him." But I went, thinking I could handle one more night of his nonsense. I was wrong. Halfway through, Ethan pulled me aside, his smile too wide, his grip on my arm too tight. "James, we're making history tonight," he said, leading me to a private study off the main hall. Liam, our younger brother, was already there, his eyes darting nervously. The room felt wrong, too quiet, the air thick with something I couldn't name. On the desk sat a tray of medical supplies, syringes, vials, and a contract with a couple's names I didn't recognize. My stomach dropped. "What is this?" I asked, my voice shaking. Ethan's grin turned predatory. "Your legacy, James. You've been selfish long enough." Before I could react, Liam grabbed my arms, pinning me against the wall. Ethan picked up a syringe, its needle glinting under the lamplight. "This'll jumpstart your contribution," he said, his voice calm, like he was offering me a beer. I thrashed, screaming for help, but the party's music drowned me out. The needle plunged into my arm and fire exploded through my veins. My vision blurred, my knees buckled, and Ethan's words echoed. "We're harvesting your seed tonight. The buyers are waiting." Buyers. The word hit like a sledgehammer. This wasn't just about shaming me into fatherhood. Ethan was running a scheme, selling my biology to the highest bidder. As I slumped to the floor, I saw Liam hesitate, his grip loosening. "Ethan, is this legal?" he whispered. Ethan laughed, cold and sharp. "It's family business, Liam. Grow up." Through the haze, I caught glimpses of the contract, names, dollar amounts, and the logo of Genesis Legacy, a shady fertility clinic I'd seen in my spam emails. My body convulsed, my organs screaming as the drug took hold. Ethan knelt beside me, his face inches from mine. "You'll thank me when your son carries our name," he said. "The couple's perfect. A doctor and a lawyer, desperate for a Carter heir." I tried to scream, but my throat betrayed me. The room spun and I saw Liam's face, pale and conflicted, before darkness swallowed me. In that moment, I realized Ethan's obsession had morphed into something monstrous. This wasn't about family pride anymore. It was trafficking. My body, my future, sold for his warped dream of legacy. As I blacked out, one thought burned through the pain. If I survived this, Ethan would pay. When I came to, the world was a blur of sterile white walls and beeping machines. My body felt like it was on fire, every nerve screaming, my abdomen throbbing as if someone had ripped me apart from the inside. I was in a Seattle hospital, hooked to IVs, with no memory of how I got there. The last thing I remembered was Ethan's syringe, his cold promise to harvest my future, and the sickening realization that my own brother was trafficking my biology. As my vision cleared, I saw a nurse, Rachel, checking my chart. Her face was grim. "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Carter," she said softly. "Ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, but you're male. This shouldn't happen." Her words hit like a punch. Ethan's drug wasn't just some fertility booster. It was a weapon, and I was its target. I tried to sit up, but pain pinned me down. Rachel leaned closer, her voice low. "Your brother brought you in, said it was an allergic reaction. But I've seen this before. Genesis Legacy's work. Genesis Legacy. The name from the contract at the gala." My mind raced, piecing together the horror. Ethan wasn't acting alone. He was part of something bigger, a shadowy fertility clinic in Seattle that preyed on people like me, people who dared to say no to their twisted vision of legacy. I croaked out, "What did he do to me?" Rachel hesitated, then whispered, "They tried to force your body to produce viable samples. You nearly died from the overdose." Before I could process it, the door swung open. Ethan strode in, all fake concern, his tailored suit pristine against the hospital's starkness. "James, thank God you're okay," he said, his voice dripping with crocodile tears. Behind him, Liam hovered, eyes downcast, guilt etched on his face. I wanted to scream, to lunge at Ethan, but my body betrayed me. He leaned in, his breath hot on my face. "You scared us, little brother. But don't worry, we'll get you fixed up, ready to do your part for the family." His smile was a blade, and I saw the truth. He wasn't done with me. Rachel stepped between us, her voice sharp. "He needs rest, Mr. Carter. Family visits later." Ethan's eyes narrowed, but he backed off, promising to return. As soon as he left, Rachel slipped me a card with a name, Detective Alvarez, Domestic Violence Unit. "Call him when you're alone," she said. "He's been sniffing around Genesis for months." My hand shook as I tucked the card under my pillow. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't alone in this fight. Later, alone in the dim room, I pieced together what I'd uncovered. Genesis Legacy wasn't just a clinic, it was a front for a black market operation targeting young men and women who resisted family pressure to reproduce. Ethan, I learned from a quick phone search, was their community liaison, charming families into funneling their rebellious kids into the program. The gala, the syringe, the contract, it was all part of their playbook. My stomach churned as I realized how deep this went. Ethan hadn't just betrayed me, he was profiting off my pain, selling my future to a couple desperate for a perfect heir. But hope wasn't enough. Ethan's visit left me paranoid. Nurses whispered in the hall, and I caught one glancing at my chart too long. Was she with Genesis? My phone, left on the bedside table, buzzed with texts from Liam. I didn't know it'd go this far. I'm sorry. Sorry. He'd held me down while Ethan injected me. I didn't trust him or anyone except Rachel and this Detective Alvarez. As the machines beeped, I vowed to survive, not just for me, but to burn Ethan's empire to the ground. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Lying in that Seattle hospital bed, my body still screaming from Ethan's poison, I thought I'd hit rock bottom, but I was wrong. Ethan wasn't just after my biology. He wanted to erase me piece by piece until I was nothing but a puppet for his Carter legacy. While I fought to breathe, he was out there hijacking my life, poisoning every corner of my world, my job, my bank account, even Sarah, the one person I trusted most. They were all targets in his sick game. This wasn't just a brother's betrayal. It was a calculated war to break me. It started with my phone. As I clutched Detective Alvarez's card, my screen lit up with notifications. My work email was flooded with messages from colleagues. "Take care, James. We're here for you." Confused, I opened one and felt my blood run cold. An email sent from my account at 3 a.m. announced I was taking indefinite leave to address personal health issues. It described me as struggling with identity and family pressures, painting me as a man unhinged by my refusal to have kids. I hadn't written it. Ethan had. He'd hacked my account. Or worse, had someone at Genesis Legacy do it. My hands shook as I tried to log in to retract it, but my password was changed. The recovery email swapped to one I didn't recognize. My career, the one thing I'd built for myself, was slipping away. Then came the bank alerts. Thousands drained from my savings, transfers to accounts I didn't know, labeled family investments. Ethan's doing, no doubt. He'd gotten my banking details, probably from Liam, who'd been in my apartment too many times. I called my bank, but the rep sounded skeptical. "Sir, the transactions were authorized with your PIN." Authorized? I'd been unconscious in a hospital bed. Ethan was covering his tracks, making it look like I was willingly funding his scheme. The worst blow was Sarah. She texted me that morning. "James, we need to talk. Ethan showed me some stuff." My heart sank. When I called, her voice was distant, laced with doubt. "He said you've been lying to me, that you've always wanted kids but were too scared to admit it." Ethan had gotten to her, spinning a story that twisted our late-night talks about freedom into proof of my denial. He'd even shown her doctored texts, ones I'd supposedly sent Liam years ago saying I dreamed of being a dad. I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "I need space, James. I don't know what's real anymore." The line went dead, and with it, my anchor. Ethan had turned the love of my life against me. I wasn't just fighting for my body now, I was fighting for my identity. Ethan's reach was suffocating. He'd called my boss, pretending to be concerned, planting seeds that I was having a breakdown. My coworkers were already whispering, some even sending me links to therapy sites for men's identity crises. He'd contacted my landlord claiming I was unstable, prompting a notice about my lease. Even my gym buddies got messages from me, confessing I was jealous of Ethan's family. Every avenue of my life was being poisoned, and Ethan was the puppet master, pulling strings from his perch at Genesis Legacy. Liam's texts kept coming, each one a weak apology. "I didn't sign up for this, James. Ethan said it was for your own good." for my own good. He'd held me down while Ethan injected me with drugs that nearly killed me. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust him, not when he was still under Ethan's spell. But the texts gave me a clue. Ethan was escalating because he sensed I was slipping away. My relationship with Sarah, my career, my independence, they were threats to his control. He needed me broken, compliant, ready to hand over my future to his buyers. As the hospital room dimmed, Rachel, the nurse, slipped in during a shift change. "Alvarez is digging into Genesis," she whispered. "But be careful. Ethan's got eyes here." She nodded at a security camera in the corner. My paranoia spiked. Was that nurse who lingered by my chart one of his? The orderly who accidentally bumped my IV? Ethan's empire was bigger than I'd imagined, and I was trapped in its web. But I wasn't giving up. With Alvarez and Rachel on my side, I had a chance to fight back. I just had to survive long enough to do it. The hospital room felt like a tomb, my life unraveling with every buzz of my phone, Ethan's lies choking out everything I'd built. But nothing prepared me for what came next. Just as I clung to the faint hope of Detective Alvarez and Rachel's help, the door swung open, and two orderlies in crisp white coats stepped in. "James Carter," one said, his voice flat. "You're being transferred to the psychiatric ward for evaluation." My heart stopped. Evaluation? Before I could protest, they were unhooking my IV, their hands firm, their faces blank. Ethan's trap had snapped shut, and I was being dragged into a new kind of prison, one where my sanity would be the next thing he stole. The psych ward was a cold, sterile maze in a separate wing of the Seattle hospital, all flickering fluorescents and locked doors. They wheeled me into a small room with padded walls, a single bed with restraint straps, and a tiny reinforced window. A doctor followed. Dr. Harper, a wiry man with a practiced smile that didn't reach his eyes. He carried a tablet and a file stamped with the Genesis Legacy logo. My stomach churned. "James," he began, his tone syrupy, "your brother's concerned about your mental state. He says you've been struggling with your role as a man rejecting fatherhood." I tried to interrupt, but he raised a hand. "We're here to help you face those fears." The evaluation was a sham. Harper peppered me with questions designed to twist my words. When I said I didn't want kids, he typed, "Patient exhibits defensive rejection of masculinity." When I mentioned Ethan's attack at the gala, he murmured, "Paranoid delusions about family support." I told him about the syringe, the burning in my veins, and he leaned forward, eyes glinting. "Fascinating. Sometimes stress manifests as false memories of persecution." False memories? I was shaking, my voice rising, but he just kept typing, painting me as a man unhinged by fear of fatherhood. Then came the evidence. Ethan's handiwork. Harper slid his tablet across, showing a video of me at a family barbecue last summer, tossing a football with Ethan's oldest son. The caption, added by Ethan, read, "James loves being uncle. He's just scared to be dad." It was edited to make me look obsessed, lingering on shots of me smiling at the kid. Next, Harper pulled out a notebook, its pages yellowed, labeled James's Journal. Inside were lists of baby names, William, Noah, Carter Jr., in handwriting so close to mine it made my skin crawl. "Found in your apartment," Harper said. "Your brother says you've been planning a family in secret." I'd never seen it before. Ethan had planted it, just like he'd planted doubt in Sarah's mind. The worst was a photo Harper flashed next, a crib, half assembled, tucked in my apartment's closet. "Your landlord sent this," he said. "You told him you were preparing for a baby." My head spun. I'd never bought a crib. Ethan, or someone at Genesis, had staged it, probably when Liam was visiting. Every protest I made was met with Harper's smug nod. Denial is common in cases of identity crisis, he said, typing furiously. Your fixation on career over family has caused a break from reality. Break from reality. The man who'd drugged me was walking free, while I was being locked up for refusing to be his breeding machine. Harper's verdict came fast. I'm recommending a 72-hour hold for observation, he said, standing. With therapy, we can address your delusions about your brother's intentions. Delusions? I gripped the bed's edge, my knuckles white. This is illegal, I said. I know my rights. Harper's smile tightened. Your brothers filed for temporary medical guardianship, given your erratic behavior. It's all in your best interest. Guardianship. Ethan was trying to strip my autonomy, to control my body and mind completely. As Harper left, an orderly handed me paper scrubs, my belongings confiscated for safety. The door locked with a heavy click, and I was alone, the walls closing in. Ethan's plan was perfect. Discredit me, isolate me, then force me to comply. But I wasn't broken yet. Rachel's card, hidden in my sock, was my lifeline. If I could reach Alvarez, I could expose Harper, Ethan, and Genesis' legacy. The psych ward's hum filled the silence, broken only by a patient's distant sob. I had to stay sharp, play their game, and find a way out before Ethan's lies buried me for good. The psych ward's fluorescent buzz was a constant reminder of Ethan's trap, each flicker tightening the noose around my freedom. Locked in that sterile cell, labeled a delusional man afraid of fatherhood, I clung to the faint hope of Detective Alvarez and Rachel's whispered warnings. Dr. Harper's fake sympathy and Ethan's planted evidence, a fake journal, a staged crib, had painted me as unhinged, and I was running out of time to prove otherwise. But just when I thought I'd seen the depths of Ethan's betrayal, the door opened, and my world shattered. Sarah, my Sarah, walked in, her eyes red, her hands clutching a folder branded with Genesis Legacy's logo. The woman I loved, my partner in dreaming a life free of expectations, was part of Ethan's game. James, she said, her voice trembling. I'm so sorry. Sorry. My heart raced as she sat across from me, avoiding my gaze. Ethan showed me everything. Your journal, the text, the crib. He said you were hiding your true feelings, that you wanted kids but were too scared to tell me. I tried to speak, but she pressed on, tears spilling. He told me you were breaking down, that I could help you by giving you what you really wanted. She opened the folder, revealing a contract. My breath caught. It was a surrogacy agreement. Her signature at the bottom, agreeing to carry a child, my child, using samples Genesis Legacy had already extracted from me during the gala attack. I'm pregnant, James, she whispered. With your baby. Ethan said it would save you. Pregnant? The word hit like a freight train. Ethan hadn't just tried to harvest my biology. He'd succeeded. While I was fighting for my life in the hospital, Genesis had used the drugs to steal what they needed, and Sarah, manipulated by his lies, had signed up to be the vessel. My vision blurred, not from drugs this time, but from rage and heartbreak. Sarah, he drugged me, I said, my voice hoarse. Those texts, the journal, they're fake. He's trafficking my DNA, selling it to some rich couple. Her eyes widened, but doubt lingered. Ethan showed me proof, she said, pulling out her phone. There were screenshots, faked messages from me to Liam, saying I envied Ethan's kids, that I was ready to step up. The timestamps were from years ago, perfectly forged. I reached for her hand, desperate. Sarah, you know me. I never wanted this. Ethan's been gaslighting you, just like he's doing to me. But she pulled back, shaking her head. He paid me, James. Genesis gave me 50 grand to help you heal. I thought I was saving our future. paid her. The betrayal cut deeper than Ethan's needle. Sarah, my rock, had been bought. Her trust in me twisted into a weapon. She stood, clutching the folder. "I need to think," she said, and walked out, leaving me alone with the weight of her words. Pregnant. My child. Stolen before it even existed. Part of Ethan's sick empire. The room spun as the truth sank in. Ethan's plan was more monstrous than I'd imagined. He'd used Sarah's love for me against her, turning her into a pawn while stripping me of everything. My autonomy, my future, my trust. I pounded the padded wall, my screams muffled, but no one came. Harper's evaluation loomed, and with Sarah's testimony, Ethan's case against me was ironclad. They'd lock me away, harvest more, maybe even force me to accept the child as proof of my recovery. Yay. I was drowning in their lies, and Sarah's betrayal was the anchor pulling me under, but something in me snapped. I wasn't done. Rachel's card, still hidden in my sock, was my lifeline. If Sarah could be fooled, she could be saved. And so could I. I had to outsmart Ethan, play his game better than he did. As the ward's hum filled the silence, I vowed to fight, not just for me, but for the child I never wanted, now a pawn in Ethan's legacy. Ethan thought he'd won. He was about to learn how wrong he was. Sarah's betrayal left me gutted. Her words, "I'm pregnant with your baby," echoing in the psych ward's sterile silence like a death knell. Ethan had stolen everything, my freedom, my career, my love, even my DNA, now growing inside Sarah as part of his Genesis legacy scheme. Locked in this padded Seattle cell, branded delusional by Dr. Harper's lies, I was at my breaking point. But as the ward's hum drowned out my rage, a fire sparked inside me. Ethan thought he'd crushed me. He was wrong. I wasn't gonna rot here. I'd play his game, outsmart him, and tear his empire down. My only weapons: a hidden card with Detective Alvarez's number and a desperate plan to fake compliance until I could strike. The psych ward was a maze of control. Cameras in every corner, nurses checking my every move, Harper's smug evaluations twisting my words. If I fought openly, they'd sedate me, extend the hold, maybe even let Ethan's guardianship petition sail through. But if I could convince them I'd seen the light, embraced the fatherhood Ethan wanted, I might get out before he locked me away for good. It was a gamble, but it was all I had. So I started my performance. During group therapy, I raised my hand, my voice shaky but deliberate. "I've been scared," I said, eyes downcast. "Scared of being a dad, of living up to Ethan's example. But I think I'm ready to try." The therapist nodded, scribbling notes, while other patients murmured support. I hated every word, but it was working. Harper was next. In our one-on-one, I leaned into the lie. "You were right," I told him, forcing a quiver in my voice. "I've been running from my responsibilities. Ethan's just trying to help me be a man." His eyes lit up, his tablet clicking as he typed my breakthrough. He even smiled, saying, "This is progress, James. I'll tell your brother you're coming around." I nodded, hiding my clenched fists. Every fake apology, every nod to Ethan's twisted vision, burned like acid, but it bought me time. Harper started talking about early release, mentioning a follow-up at Genesis Legacy. Perfect. That's where I'd find the evidence to bury them. My real fight happened in secret. During a supervised bathroom break, I slipped Rachel's card from my sock and memorized Alvarez's number. The ward's phones were monitored, but I found a moment when an orderly was distracted, pretending to adjust my shoelace. I dialed Alvarez from a hallway phone, my heart pounding. "It's James Carter," I whispered. "Genesis Legacy's trafficking my DNA. Ethan's behind it. Harper, too. Check their clinic records. Alvarez's voice was steady. I'm on it, but you need to stay safe. They're watching you. I hung up before anyone noticed, my pulse racing. Rachel caught my eye later, giving a subtle nod. She was still with me, sneaking updates about Alvarez's investigation through coded messages in my meal trays. I kept up the act with Ethan. When he visited, I wore the hospital gown like a costume, rubbing my hands nervously as I confessed. I'm sorry I fought you, I said, mimicking his sanctimonious tone. I want to make the family proud. His smirk was unbearable, but he bought it, patting my shoulder. Good boy, James. We'll get you started at Genesis soon. He left and I exhaled, the weight of my deception crushing but necessary. Liam came by too, his guilt palpable. I didn't know it'd go this far, he mumbled. I didn't trust him, but I played along, asking about Ethan's plans to keep him talking. Every detail was a weapon. By the end of the day, Harper was so impressed he scheduled a release hearing for the next morning, contingent on my continued progress. I lay in my cell that night, staring at the ceiling, planning my next move. Alvarez needed time to dig, and I needed to get to Genesis before Ethan's guardianship hearing sealed my fate. The performance was working, but one slip, a wrong word, a suspicious glance, could unravel it all. Ethan thought he'd won, but I was rewriting the script. This wasn't his legacy anymore. It was my fight for freedom. The psych ward's sterile walls felt like they were closing in, but my performance as Ethan's compliant brother had paid off. Dr. Harper, fooled by my fake embrace of fatherhood, signed off on my release, scheduling it for dawn. But I knew Ethan's trap wasn't over. His guardianship hearing loomed, and with Sarah's betrayal and Genesis Legacy's grip, he was one step from owning my life. I had to act fast. With Detective Alvarez digging into Genesis and Rachel sneaking me intel, I saw a narrow path to freedom. That morning, as I slipped out of the Seattle hospital, my heart pounded. I wasn't just escaping a ward. I was racing to a courtroom to dismantle Ethan's empire. Ethan had planned to keep me at Genesis Legacy that afternoon, likely for more treatments to harvest what he'd already stolen. Instead, I hailed a rideshare and headed to the King County Courthouse, my hospital wristband still dangling. Alvarez had texted me coordinates for the hearing, pulled from court records he'd accessed overnight. I burst through the courtroom doors at 1:55 p.m., the judge already speaking. Ethan sat at the petitioner's table, his lawyer flipping through Harper's damning evaluation. My colleague, Mia, a lawyer I'd contacted through a desperate email from the ward, stood at the respondent's side. She saw me and exhaled, relief flashing across her face. "Your Honor," she said, "my client, James Carter, is here to contest the guardianship petition." Ethan's face went ashen, then twisted with rage. "He's supposed to be at the clinic," he blurted, his lawyer hissing for him to shut up. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," she said dryly. "Mr. Carter, are you here of your own free will?" I stepped forward, my voice steady despite the adrenaline. "Yes, Your Honor. And I'm here to prove my brother's been trying to control my life, my body, and my future." The room buzzed as I laid out my case, Mia backing me with evidence I'd smuggled to her. Forged emails, the fake journal, bank records showing Ethan's theft, and a hidden camera Rachel had planted in Harper's office, capturing him colluding with Genesis. The bombshell came when Alvarez took the stand. He'd raided Genesis Legacy that morning, uncovering contracts linking Ethan to a dozen coerced donors like me, young men and women pressured by family, drugged, and exploited for profit. My stolen samples, he revealed, were already in play, with Sarah's pregnancy just one of many. The courtroom gasped as he showed emails between Ethan and a couple offering $200,000 for a Carter heir. Ethan's lawyer stammered, but the evidence was airtight. I turned to Ethan, my voice cutting through the chaos. "You didn't want a legacy. You wanted power. You drugged me, sold my DNA, and broke Sarah to do it." He lunged, shouting, "You're nothing without the family." Bailiffs tackled him, his screams echoing as they dragged him out. Sarah was there in the back row, tears streaming. She approached after the judge's ruling, her voice broken. "James, I didn't know. Ethan showed me lies, paid me to believe them. I'm so sorry." I looked at her, the woman I'd loved, now carrying a child that was mine but stolen. "I can't trust you," I said, my heart aching. "Not now." She nodded, sobbing, and left. The judge's gavel fell. "Petition denied. Ethan Carter, you're under arrest for assault, fraud, and trafficking." She issued a restraining order, barring him from me forever. As I walked out, the Seattle sky was gray, but I felt lighter. Ethan's empire was crumbling. Genesis was under investigation, and I'd reclaim my life. But the cost was steep. Sarah, Liam's blind loyalty, my family's myth of legacy, all shattered. I'd won, but the scars would stay. Now I had to decide what came next, not just for me, but for the child Ethan had forced into existence. Freedom wasn't just escaping, it was choosing what to fight for. The courtroom's echo faded as I stepped into the Seattle drizzle, the weight of Ethan's defeat lifting with every breath. I'd torn down his empire. Genesis' legacy was under investigation. Ethan was in cuffs, and the restraining order ensured he'd never touch my life again. But victory wasn't sweet. Sarah's betrayal, Liam's complicity, and the child I never wanted, now growing inside her, left scars that no judge's gavel could heal. Standing on the courthouse steps, I knew this wasn't the end. It was a beginning, a chance to rebuild, to fight for others, and to show the world that no one's future should be stolen. My first step was Noah, Ethan's oldest son, just 7 years old. I found him at a family friend's house, his eyes wide with confusion as he clutched a toy car. "Uncle James, why's Dad in trouble?" he asked. My heart broke. Ethan had groomed him to worship the Carter legacy, parading him at galas like a mini heir. I knelt down, voice soft but firm. "Noah, you're more than your last name. You can be anything, a coder, a painter, a kid who loves cars. You don't have to be what anyone else wants." He nodded, uncertain but listening. I vowed to be there for him, to show him a world beyond Ethan's lies, to break the cycle before it claimed another generation. But my fight went bigger. Back at my Capitol Hill apartment, I poured my pain into action. With Mia's help, I founded the Autonomy Alliance, a nonprofit to protect people from reproductive coercion. We worked with Alvarez to expose Genesis Legacy's victims, dozens of young men and women pressured by families or lured by cash, their bodies exploited for profit. I spoke at community centers, sharing my story, watching eyes widen as people realized how close they'd come to similar traps. One woman, barely 20, hugged me after a talk, tears streaming. "My dad's been pushing me to donate eggs. You gave me the courage to say no." That moment, more than any courtroom win, felt like purpose. I also tracked down Sarah, not for reconciliation, but for clarity. She was at a coffee shop, her pregnancy just starting to show. "I'm keeping the baby," she said, her voice steady. "But I'll never work with Genesis again." "I'm so sorry, James." I nodded, the ache still raw. "Raise them to be free," I said. "That's all I ask." We parted, not as lovers, but as people who'd survived the same storm. I didn't know if I'd ever meet that child, but I'd fight to ensure they'd never face Ethan's world. Seattle's skyline glowed as I walked home. My startup dreams reignited. My tech firm welcomed me back, and I poured my energy into an app for the Autonomy Alliance, connecting victims to legal aid and safe havens. Every line of code felt like defiance, a middle finger to Ethan's legacy. Noah started visiting, shy at first, but soon he was sketching app designs with me, his laughter filling the void Sarah left. I wasn't his dad. I didn't want to be, but I was his uncle, and that was enough. Looking back, I saw the truth. Freedom isn't just escaping a cage. It's building a world where no one else gets locked in. Ethan thought he'd define me, but I defined myself. And if I could do that, so could anyone. The war wasn't over. Families like mine still push, still manipulate, but I'd shown it could be fought. And won. Standing in the Seattle rain, the courthouse behind me, I felt the weight of what I'd survived. Ethan's betrayal, Sarah's broken trust, and Genesis Legacy's twisted empire could have destroyed me. But I fought back and won. Not just for myself, but for Noah, for the victims I'd never meet, for anyone trapped by someone else's vision of their worth. My story isn't just a warning, it's a blueprint. Here's what I learned, and what you can take into your own life to stand your ground, no matter who tries to cage you. First, know the signs of manipulation. Ethan didn't start with a syringe. He started with words, guilt trips, and subtle jabs at my choices. Gaslighting creeps in slowly. A parent saying, "You'll regret not having kids." A sibling calling your dreams selfish. Or a partner twisting your words to fit their narrative. If someone's pushing you to be something you're not, question it. Write down what they say. Compare it to your truth. And trust your gut. Manipulation thrives in doubt, so shine a light on it. Second, build your allies. I wouldn't have escaped without Rachel's courage, Alvarez's grit, or Mia's legal savvy. Find your people, friends, coworkers, even strangers who've walked your path. Online forums, local support groups, or a trusted mentor can be lifelines. If you're facing family pressure or coercion, reach out to organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline, or if it's about your body, groups like Planned Parenthood. You're not alone, even when it feels like it. Finally, define your value on your terms. Ethan thought my worth was in my DNA, in a legacy I never wanted. Society might say it's in kids, a big house, or a certain job, but that's noise. You decide what makes you whole, whether it's coding apps like me, painting, traveling, or just living quietly. Don't let anyone's expectations steal that from you. If they try, set boundaries, document everything, and be ready to walk away, even from family. It hurts, but it's freedom. My fight taught me that autonomy is worth everything. So stand up for yours. Share this story, talk about it, and help someone else see they're not trapped. Together we can break the cycles, whether it's a brother like Ethan or a system like Genesis. You are enough, just as you are. Now go live like it.